Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me put this in. Pushing in the stand. Hey guys, how you doing? Good to see you. Hope Mommy and Daddy are promising you a real gift for doing this. Folks, I want to say, Sergeant, I want to thank you for your service and for introduction of me. I appreciate it very much. And congratulations on your promotion. I know your whole family is so proud. You know, when my son, Bo, was promoted to major in Iraq, I happened to be there shortly afterwards, and I said, now you're a feel-great officer. He said, I have no illusions, Dad, who runs the Army. Those folks with stripes on their shoulders. And you do. Well, thank you. Look, I want to thank Senator Maggie Hassan, Senator Jeannie Shaheen, and Congresswoman Annie Custer for their work on behalf of veterans. And former Governor John Lynch is here with his wife, Dr. Susan, who their friendship for years has meant a great deal to me and to my family. And Secretary McDonough, thank you for your leadership, because it really matters. To all the veterans and families that are here today, I want to say thank you. We could never fully thank you for all the sacrifices you've made. Only 1% of the American population is risk everything to defend our other 99% of us. 1%, that's it. We owe you. We owe you big. I've long said, and initially got in trouble for saying it, that about 30 years ago, that America has a lot of obligations, but only one truly sacred obligation. Sacred obligation. And that's to prepare those we send into harm's way and to care for them and their families when they come home, and if they don't come home, care for their families. Nearly 2 years ago, we took a giant step toward fulfilling that obligation when I fought for and signed the PACT Act. It was one of the most significant laws ever. It surprised me anybody voted against it, but a bunch did. We set up to help millions of veterans who were exposed to toxic substances during their services. And today, I'm proud to announce the VA just granted its 1 millionth PACT Act claim. 1 million. A major milestone, providing $5.7 million in benefits to 890,000 veterans and their families so far in hand, including 3,000 here in New Hampshire. It matters because too many service members have not only braved the battlefield, but they also, while breathing in toxic fumes and from burn pits and other means. You know, pits as big as a football field, 100 yards long, 10 feet deep, that incinerate all the wastes of war. Everything from tires to chemicals to jet fuel and so much more. So much more. Smoke thick with poison, spreading through the air into the lungs of many thousands of troops who live and work near them in one of those burn pits. I know, I saw them in Iraq and Afghanistan, and my many times in and out, you could smell it in the air. And when our troops came home, many of the fittest, best trained warriors we've ever seen, we saw like in 9/11 fighters, for firefighters. They were incredibly helpful in making my case, because what happened? Look at all those firefighters that died of cancer as a consequence of being exposed to those toxic fumes. Headaches, numbness, dizziness, trouble breathing, cancer, brain cancer. Folks, you suffered long enough. You shouldn't have to prove that your illness came from their service. But thanks to the PACT Act, you don't have to prove it now. My son Bo was one of those veterans. So this is personal to me and my family and to his family and his children, and so many of yours. So I took office, I determined that come hell or high water, we're going to protect the heroes and protect our nation. We learned a terrible lesson after Vietnam, as those harmful effects of Agent Orange took years to manifest and left too many veterans without the care they deserved, because they had to prove that every illness they had was a consequence of Agent Orange, which is often too hard to do. That's why I co-sponsored Agent Orange Act as a senator way back in 1991 to support veterans exposed to toxic substances in Vietnam. That's why I pushed to pass the PACT Act, so today's veterans don't suffer the same painful, frustrating delays and denials. That's why we continue to work around the clock to get veterans benefits they deserve and get them now. Many of you and your family members and advocates fought for years to make this happen. Folks literally slept on the Capitol steps the week we were fighting this out in the Senate to get it done. They literally slept on the steps. After 41 Republican senators, a vast majority of that caucus voted against the bill, against expanding health care for disabled veterans, New Hampshire's congressional leaders worked hard to push it through, and the senators and congressmen stepped up. Since then, we've launched the biggest outreach campaign in VA history to make sure veterans in every state, territory, and area know what the law does. First, it expands eligibility for VA health care. Today, toxic exposed veterans who served during any conflict, not just the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, can enroll. Over 145,000 veterans are now getting care as a result of that one change. The law also provides regular toxic exposure screenings to catch problems early when they can be dealt with. It expands access to disability benefits, including monthly payments for folks who have fallen sick. We've made those benefits effective immediately. Immediately. The law is, look, the bottom line is people not being sure we'd get it done without a lot of complication. The law invests in new facilities, new research, more healthcare workers at VA hospitals. And I'm committed to making the long-needed upgrades in the facilities, the VA's facilities right here in New Hampshire. For families who have lost a loved one, the PACT Act means monthly stipends of about $3,000 a month for a surviving spouse with two children. And by the way, surviving spouse gets those benefits for the rest of their lives. It means tuition benefits for children to go to college, to get job training. I'll never make up for the having lost a piece of your soul, the husband, wife, son, daughter. But we owe it to folks, everyone we can, to help put their lives back together, because it's tough stuff. In America, we leave no veteran behind. That's the motto. On my way here today, I met with veterans named Lisa Clark over at the VFW. She served in the Air Force, where she met her husband, a combat engineer who served in Vietnam. They were together 42 years. He was exposed to Agent Orange during his time in Vietnam, and last year he passed away from cancer. Thanks to the PACT Act, the burden was not on Lisa to prove the Agent Orange causes of cancer. And thanks to that, the PACT Act, Lisa now receives $1,600 a month survivor benefits. It doesn't take away the pain of losing her husband, but it allowed her to keep living in the same home they shared for 20 years. Service is a tradition of Lisa's family, and so many of your families are in this room today. Her dad, Anthony, joined the Navy when he was 18 years old, served in World War II. He's now 96 years old, and I think he's here in the room today. Where are you, Dad? Like my deceased father-in-law, as we say in the Catholic Church, no purgatory for this guy, 5 daughters. Straight to heaven. And by the way, I say to every young man thinking of getting married, marrying a family with 5 or more daughters. I did. My wife's the oldest of 5 sisters. You know why? One of them will always love you. Not the same one. One of them will always be on your side. That's the biggest advantage of marrying into 5 daughters. Lisa's brother-in-law and nephew also served in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're exposed to toxic burn kits because they're both fighting lung now. Because of that, they're fighting lung and heart disease. The PACT Act is finally getting them the VA benefits they deserve. Lisa's called it a game changer and says volunteers, and she volunteers at the VA in Manchester to a quota, she says, to give something back. She's already given a lot. Lisa, you spent years giving back. It's time we have your back and have it now. And by the way, that's literally what the PACT Act does. I'm asking everyone to help spread the word. Go to va.gov/PACT, P-A-C-T, and apply for VA health care. Get screened for toxic exposure and file a claim. Or go to your VA or Veterans Organization for help. They have staff from the VA here today to help sign you up if you need that help. Folks, in the last year, the VA delivered more benefits and processed more overall claims than ever in the entire history of the VA. And since I took office, we passed over 30 bipartisan laws supporting veterans and their families, caregivers, and survivors. We've increased resources to end veteran homelessness, hired and trained hundreds of additional mental health providers, specifically to help veterans end the silent scourge of veteran suicide. And while recruiting veterans to help other veterans to understand what's going on and what they're going through, asking for help is a sign of strength in reaching out to your fellow vets to save lives. It's not a weakness. We're also working to protect veterans from scammers who target their benefits. No one should be defrauded in a nation they defended. You know, and through my wife Jill's work in joining forces, we've taken the most comprehensive action in history to expand economic opportunity for military spouses, veteran spouses, caregivers, and survivors. That means jobs, trainings, child care, elder care, and more. Today's veterans' unemployment rate is near a record low of 3.2% as a consequence of all of this. We have a lot more to do, but our plan is working. Let me close with this. After I signed the PACT Act into law, I handed the pen that I signed it with, was the tradition of the person most responsible for the legislation, to a widow and a daughter of the late Sergeant First Class Heath Robertson. They fought for years to see it pass, and finally the family that suffered the greatest loss turned its pain and purpose to help others. That's courage, that's character, that's America. We came together to keep our promises. Veterans, you are the solid steel spine of our nation, and that's not hyperbole. Your families are the courageous heart. Generations of patriots have stood on the front lines of freedom. Each one, a link in a chain of honor stretching back to our founding days. Just as you've done your duty to America in the past, we're now finally beginning to do our duty to you. The United States of America, that's who we are. And there's nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. You've got to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. Nothing is beyond our capacity. May God bless our veterans and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.